The woman you're about to meet is truly remarkable. Out of terrible grief, Nikki Jamieson found a reason to live. And she's determined to hold our Defence Force to account and won't stop until she knows her son's death wasn't in vain.
You know, losing a child is the most devastating thing a parent can ever go through in their life.
Nikki Jamieson has lost 2 children, one to a medical condition, the other to suicide.
You know, losing a child under normal circumstances, like my daughter under medical circumstances, is one thing. That grief is a whole, layer of pain that you don't want anybody to ever go through, but suicide escalates that, a millionfold, because there are so many more unanswered questions.
Nikki's son, Daniel Garforth, was only 19 when he signed up for the army. 2 years later, he took his own life. A victim, she claims, of a system where he was bullied and belittled.
Yes, he was bullied. He documented himself being bullied and harassed, and he did document feeling demoralised in his actual suicide note.
Were you angry?
Very, very, very. And it's taken me many years to channel my anger into something positive. So I brought a few artefacts just to highlight that most of us will be looking forward, to Christmas and events. We don't get to do that anymore. That's all right.
Nikki was the first witness at the Royal Commission into Defence and Veterans Suicide, which has started taking evidence in Brisbane. Nikki brought with her her son Daniel's slouch hat and his photo, which normally live in this cabinet at home.
This is all we have left. We send our sons and daughters young, fit and healthy, and this is what we get, and a coffin.
She leaves me lost for words sometimes with just how strong she is, like a strength of character.
Anthony is Nikki's husband. He's not Daniel's father, but he's certainly Nikki's biggest fan.
To go through what Nikki has gone through and to be able to redirect her experience into, helping other families. You don't meet too many people like that.
He was just a really good, decent bloke, would help anybody with anything. He was just lovely, had a heart of gold.
Had he always wanted to join the army?
From being little, he used to dress up in little army suits and, play cowboy games and shoot 'em up games.
Nikki remembers being so proud of Daniel when he graduated training and was sent to Thompson Army Base in Darwin, where he was stationed for 2 years. But it was here, Nikki says, he felt like a failure.
And I suppose he felt it didn't really matter what he did. He just couldn't meet the standards, he couldn't please his command.
And Daniel actually tried to make some complaints about some of his superiors?
Yeah, he did attempt to try and talk to somebody about his experience. Unfortunately, that person ended up secretly recording his conversation and then reporting that conversation back to the chain of command who was abusing him.
Nikki says Daniel was facing several charges for misdemeanours in the army, things like not ironing his uniform correctly. But she says the final straw for him was when he was recorded criticising senior officers. Daniel applies for a discharge from the army, which he's granted. But for some reason, the discharge is cancelled, and the next thing Nikki knows, 2 soldiers arrive in her office to tell her Daniel is dead. And did you get to see his suicide note?
Yes, I did, yeah. Because he actually wrote 2 very similar themes, that, he wasn't happy in his job and that he just couldn't go on anymore. And one of the other smaller snippets in his suicide note was, "Mum, live for me," hence why I've dedicated my life to suicide prevention, particularly defence and veteran.
Channeling her grief into study, Nikki spent the last 7 years becoming an expert on suicide.
Yes, I've worked across government in suicide prevention plans and programmes. I've written, I'm a published author in one of the top highest global journals. I've published a couple of papers in there. I've done my PhD, obviously.
She's just worked so hard and it's been such an emotional journey for her. She leaves me lost for words, really.
And the now Dr. Nikki Jamieson was also called on to give expert evidence to the Royal Commission. Hubby Anthony there to support her again.
It'll mean that Dan's death wasn't in vain, and hopefully can be a catalyst for great change.
When Daniel died, my mental health spiralled significantly. I was in a very, very dark place for quite some time. If I hadn't done my PhD and tried to, as I've said, use that pain and grief into something good, something productive, I really don't think I would have been here today.
Wow. And if Daniel is somewhere watching what you're doing, what do you think he'd be saying?
I think he'd be saying, "Go, Mum. I think you're doing an awesome job." And, you know, he would be very interested in doing what's best and helping his mates. So he would be like, "Yep, go, Mum. You know, give it to them."
Yeah, we use the word inspiring a lot, don't we? But Nikki really is. And of course, if you or someone close to you needs help, there is support available. Contact Lifeline. The number is on your screen now, 13 11 14. That's 13 11 14.